All right, so we're going to be writing equations of lines in two forms today. The first form that you're going to be writing the equation in is called slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form of a line is y equals mx plus b. And that is where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And more importantly, it's everything that's out here. In this form, when the equation is in this form, all right, whatever is to the right of the x is the y-intercept, all right? And the y-intercept, that's where the line hits the y-axis, okay? Your y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. So when a line is in slope-intercept form, you know exactly where it hits the y-axis, and you know the slope of it. Okay? That's why it's called slope-intercept form. So if you have an equation in the form of y equals 2/3 x minus 7, the slope of this line, what's the slope of that line equal to? Two-thirds, good. And what's the y-intercept of this line? The y-intercept is -7, good. All right, the other form you're going to be working in today is called point-slope form. Point-slope form of a linear equation is the letter y minus y sub 1, which is a y value of a coordinate that you have, times m, which is the slope, left parenthesis and the letter x, and then the opposite of an x value on the line, or your x sub 1. So when a line is in point-slope form, you know the slope of the line, and you know a point on the line, okay? So the slope of this line is whatever the value of m is. A point on this line would be at x sub 1 and y sub 1. So now what you got to be careful of in this point slope form, point slope form is really easy to work with, but there's a couple things you have to be careful of. So I want to write as soon as I can move this screen over. Okay, so I'm gonna write an equation of a line in point slope form over here. So if I go y minus 1 equals 2 times x minus 3. And then in this middle column, I'm asking you what the slope of this line is. All right. So if this is a line in point slope form, and the m is the slope, or whatever's sitting in the place of m when the line is in this form, what would the slope of this line right here be? It would be 2. Good. Now, this is the part, it's not tricky, but you got to be careful. Because the point slope form of a line has minus signs in it. Has a minus sign here and a minus sign here. And anytime you see that in the standard form of an equation or a formula or anything else like that, you have to be careful. There it is. Now, a point that's going to be on this line, since this format is x minus your x sub 1, and since in this equation, in the parentheses, you have x minus 3, then a point on this line would have an x value of positive 3. And the same goes for the y. All right? If the point slope form is y minus your y sub 1, and then in the equation that you're given, you have y minus a value, that value is your y value of a point that's on that line. Okay? So you have to be real careful there. And let's look at another one. So let's take it with its, when it's y, let's go minus 2 equals 3 times x plus 1. All right, what's the slope of this line? 3. Now, be careful here. The point, or a point on this line, what's the x value of a point on this line? You see how this is plus now? So we got to use the opposite there. So this is negative 1. All right, what's the y value of that, of a point on that line? Positive 2, good. And now let's switch it. Let's go y plus 4 equals negative 1/2 times x minus, or we'll go x plus 5. Slope, negative 1/2. A point on the line. See the pattern? If when this was plus 1, this was negative 1. When this is plus 5, what's this going to be? Negative 5. What's the y value? Negative 4. Does that make sense? It's not hard, you just got to be careful. So let's go backwards now. Let's go with a 4 and a 2 and a slope of negative 5. And let's write the equation working backwards. So you can kind of look at this right here, this first example, and you can use that to work backwards. Yeah. That's perfect, but you got to be careful because what you said was y minus x. Didn't you say y minus 4? But look over here. Here's your x sub 1 and your y sub 1. It's y minus your y sub 1. So it's y minus the what? Yes.
So would that mean it'd be like y minus 2?
Yes, equals times x minus 4. Good. All right. Just be careful. Just be careful, because what you want to do is when you're writing this equation right here from this data is the equation starts off with y minus your y sub 1, but then you're reading this data for this point from left to right like you read. So the natural thing to do is to use the x. You just got to be careful. It's y minus your y value equals slope times x minus your x value. All right? And another way of saying it is y and the opposite of your y equals slope times x and the opposite of your x. So let's do another one. Let's do a -3, -1, and we'll do a slope of a half. And then anybody want to take a stab at it? I'll go first. Y. Then what? +1. Good. Oops. Equals. What is it equals? Half. Left parenthesis, letter x, and then what? +3. Good. Better? Up and down for yes, left to right for no. Better? Anybody need to see another one? Good. Up and down for yes, left to right for no. Good. Good. Okay, so now we're going to write some equations. So we're going to write an equation. In slope-intercept form. Of a line with slope 3 and y-intercept of -2. All right, so the slope-intercept form, that's your y equals mx plus b. So this equation in slope-intercept form is going to be y equals, what's the m? 3. Letter x, and then your y-intercept, -2. All right, if you have to write an equation with slope, -1/2, and a y-intercept, 8. Slope -1/2, y-intercept of 8. We started off with y equals -1/2, the letter x, and then since this is a +8, we go +8 out here. All right, so there's one equation in slope-intercept form and your second equation in slope-intercept form. And that's when they give you the slope and they give you the y-intercept. Everybody all right with that? All right, so far you've written equations, and up here we worked forwards and backwards on, we took an equation and we pulled out the slope and we pulled out a point on the line. And then we were given a slope and a point on the line and we wrote the equation. So you've gone forwards and backwards with both types of equations. So now, the next thing, or the next progression in this section, is to write an equation, and now you're given some information, but you're given it indirectly. So we're going to write an equation. Of a line through each pair of points. In slope-intercept form. First set of points, 0, 3, negative 2, negative 1. Can anybody tell me what the first piece of information is that you might need to write it in slope-intercept form? Somebody whispered it, I think. Anybody at home? Anybody in class? Anybody? The slope. Very good. Did they give you the slope? They didn't give you the slope. Did they give you the slope indirectly? They gave you 2 points on the line, right? And yesterday, you found the slope when you were given 2 points on the line. So yeah, they kind of gave it to you, but you got to do a little bit of work for it. So we're going to do what we did yesterday. We're going to label these x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. We're going to find the slope. So our m is equal to negative 1 minus 3 divided by negative 2 minus 0. Negative 1 minus 3. Everybody's got their calculator on their desk, right? They're just typing in negative 1 minus 3. Say again? Negative 4. Good, good. And how about negative 2 minus 0? Negative 2. Good. What's a negative divided by a negative? It's a positive. Good. And what's 4 divided by 2? 2. Good. You are alive. All right. What does perpendicular mean? Very good. I've really been working on my anger management. Didn't we talk about perpendicular yesterday, and we kind of like perpendicular means intersects at 90? Perpendicular means intersects at 90. And then what did I tell you I was going to make you do? How many times? 100? Yeah. That just made it 1 to 1,000. Perpendicular means they intersect at 90. Okay? And that's completely off topic, but something made me think of it, and I want to see if anybody remembered. Perpendicular means they intersect at 90. All right, so back to this here. We're writing an equation. Now look, they want it in slope-intercept form. And what you've got right now is a slope, and you've got a point. All right? The easiest way to do this is to find the slope, write the line. If you got a point and you got the slope, which form can you use? If you got a point and you got the slope, what can you use? Point slope form. All right? And we just did that like 5 times. So I know the question asked for slope intercept, but if you've got a point and you got the slope, write it in point slope form first. It's very simple. We go y, and then what? What goes next? I'm using this point right here. It's a point on the line, and here's the slope. Plus 1 equals 2, left parenthesis, the letter x, and then what? Plus 2. Beautiful. That's point slope form. If we take point slope form, and now we do the distributive property, we get y plus 1 equals 2x plus 4. Agreed? Now look, if we just subtract 1 from each side, then y equals 2x plus what? 3. What form is this? What form is this right here? That's slope-intercept, isn't it? Okay? That's what the question asked, slope-intercept form. But if you have a point and you have the slope, write it in point slope form first, do the distributive property, and then solve for y. And it automatically puts the equation into slope-intercept form. Let's do that again. All right, same directions, but we're going to use this point, or these set of points. We got a -7, 4, and a 9, -4. We need it in slope-intercept form, but point-slope form is just too easy to not use it. So what did we do first last time? What do you need to do first? Very good. Find the slope. So our m is equal to -4 minus 4 divided by, what goes in the denominator here? 9 minus -7, right? Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. What's -4 minus 4? Good. 9 minus -7. That's a keep, change, right? Good. 16. What does this simplify to? -8 divided by 16. What kind of 1/2? That's a -1/2. So there's your slope. So now we're going to go point slope form first. And we go, you can use either of these points, okay? It doesn't matter which one you use. In this case, they've both got a positive and a negative, right? So if I had an option and one point was all positives, I might use it. Because when they're all positive, it's easier to work with. But I'm going to use this point right here. So if we use this first point, it's the letter y, and then what? -4 equals letter x and +7. Good. Then distribute the slope. So y minus 4 is equal to -1/2 x. And this -1/2 times 7. Anybody? -3.5, good. And then add the 4 to each side. And your y is equal to -1/2 x. And what's -3.5 plus 4? Good, plus 0.5. And there's your equation in slope-intercept form. Who can tell me what direction this line goes? What direction does that line go? We talked about it yesterday. We talked about up and to the right, up and to the left. We talked about horizontal. We talked about vertical. So what direction does that line go? Yes, ma'am. Up and to the left. Does anybody agree with her? Nod yes. Okay. So why do you agree with her? If you just agreed with her, yes. Because the slope's negative. Very good. Where's that line going to hit the y-axis? Where does that line with the arrow next to it hit the y-axis? Are you sure? Come on, yes you are. Are you more sure now? You want to phone a friend? She put you on the spot, didn't she? What? How do you know that that line hits the y-axis at 0.5? Say it again. It's the other number. It's the other number. But if an equation is in this form, y equals a value times x plus or minus another value, when it's sitting in that form, remember we said anything to the right of the equal sign earlier? Okay, whatever's sitting out here is the y-intercept. Okay, whatever's between the equal sign and the x is your slope. So can't you picture that line? Right? It goes up and to the left. It hits the y-axis, you know, just above the origin. If you had to graph that line, you just here, and it hits the y-axis. Here's our y-axis and our x-axis, and you know, if this was 1, well, here's 0.5, right? Halfway to 1. And we're going to rise 1 and run 2. So if we rise 1 and run 2, and rise 1 and run 2, there's kind of an ugly sketch of what the line would look like. All right, so you kind of want to be able, once you write the equation, you kind of want to be able to picture where that line would sit on the coordinate plane, what direction it would go, and where it would hit this y-axis. Okay? Good, good, good. All right, write an equation of a line through this and this in slope-intercept form. All right, here's the next progression. Now we're going to write an equation. We're going to write an equation. See, when you get bored, you just get to leave. Anybody else want to leave? Raise your hand if you want to leave. Yeah, I'm there with you. All right, so now we're going to write an equation. In slope-intercept form. For a line perpendicular to y equals negative 3x plus 2, containing four zero. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for a line perpendicular to y equals negative 3x plus 2, containing 4, 0. So look, we've got a point, right? What is the slope of the line that's perpendicular to this one going to be? What's the slope of this one that I just underlined? What is it? Negative 3. The slope of this line is negative 3. What's the slope of a line perpendicular to it going to be? Yes. Positive. No, you're good. It's positive, but isn't this 3 really 3 over 1? So won't the slope of the line perpendicular to it be a positive 1/3, right? We got to negate it and flip it. Negate it and flip it. So here's the slope of our new line. Here's a point on that line. With a point and the slope, what form do you use? With a point and the slope, what form do you use? Point slope. So let's do point slope form here. Let's go y. And since this y value is 0, you can write minus 0 if you want, equals the slope, which is 1/3, times x. And what goes next to the x? -4. Now, we're going to distribute here and watch what happens. Do you write minus 0 or plus 0? No, you don't never see it. You don't write it. So look, this just goes away. You're left with y equals 1/3 times x is 1/3 x. Minus 1/3 times 4 is 4/3. And you're done. There's slope-intercept form of a line that's perpendicular to the given line. Okay? You steal the slope from the first line. You find its negative reciprocal, and you use that as the slope for the next line. Then you write it in point slope form, and you distribute. Okay? Are y'all all right with that? Or do you need to do another one? Yes, ma'am. Same data. All right, I don't want to write all of this again. I'm going to say perpendicular to y equals -3/4 x plus 3 containing -3/6. So we've got a point on the new line. We need the slope for the new line. What's the slope of the new line going to be? Good, 4/3. So we go point slope form first, letter y, and then -6 equals the slope. Left parenthesis x, and what goes next to the x? Plus 3, good. Distributive property and solve for y. So y minus 6, oops. Come on. Y minus 6 equals 4/3 x. You can go ahead and finish it without me if you want. You don't need me, do you? Y minus the 6 equals 4/3 times x plus 4/3 times 3. 4/3 of 3. In your calculator, 4/3 times 3. What do you get? 4. Add 6 to each side. And y equals 3/4 x plus 10. There you go. Slope-intercept form, perpendicular to that. Yes?
Why do you flip it that way?
You don't. I screwed up. You mean 4/3 to 3/4?
Yeah.
That's my bad. Thank you. That should be a 4/3. That should have stayed 4/3. All right, you've been a great class today. My favorite class, always. Favorite second block class. All right. Here's your practice for today. in the workbook, page 37. One through 8. Fifteen through 20. All right, same deal here, you guys at home. If you don't have any questions, you are free to exit the meeting and get your assignment finished. If any of you are still here, it sounds like or looks like a lot of you guys, maybe you were here for attendance and then you disappear. I hope that's not the case. But check focus for homework.